Welcome to the One Day at a Time Recovery Podcast, where my guests share their stories of addiction, how they recovered, and the tools and practices they use to stay sober now. Zach, thank you so much for joining me today.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
I thought it would be such an interesting conversation to have with you because you're in the mental health space, you
Mhm.
got sober, and you've done a lot of work to heal your relationship with your wife, but also you had a teenage daughter at the time when you
Mhm.
got sober and healing that relationship. I hear from so many people that they get sober and then they need to contend with their children's anger. So I thought it'd be interesting to talk about that. But let's just start with how we got here. If you could share a little bit about how you grew up, when you started drinking, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I've been sorting this out in my head because I think one thing that's become apparent to me is I had a problem with alcohol before I ever started drinking, maybe even 10 years before I started drinking. It was always a thing in my house and in my life. And I just remember like really specific incidences, and not strictly around my parents, like over drinking, but just, I don't know, man. I just had this like experience of it being problematic. I can remember specific poems that I read in middle school. And I was like, "Oh, that's a problematic poem," because there was drinking in it. And then grew up in the Catholic Church, and then I met this evangelical strain of being alive and decided, "Oh, can't do that because I might go to hell if I have a drink before I'm 21 or something." I just put it in the I don't do it because it's illegal sort of category, so I protected myself in that way. And then I also had this fear. I had this fear that if I ever drank, I would turn into Mr. Hyde or something. I almost could imagine those scenes in the movies where like the guy starts turning into a bug and he starts popping and locking and it comes this like another creature. Like I really thought that was going to happen to me. I don't know why I thought that. I just did. But the kicker for me was that my dad, whom I don't have a really healthy relationship with, he's dead now for a long time, but he made me a deal one day. I think it was in the ninth grade. I was about to go to high school. And he said, I don't mind if you drink. If you want to drink, you can drink as a minor, as long as your first drink is with me, is what he said. And like I said, I didn't have a really healthy relationship with him. I didn't really like him all that much. And I was actually pretty sure he was going to try and get me like super duper drunk, like really just make me go throw up. So I took the deal and I didn't drink until I was 21. My first drink was on my 21st birthday. So I never drank with him but I didn't touch it. I didn't. And once I had my first drink, I was like, "Huh, this is not too bad." I didn't turn into a monster. I didn't feel like I was gonna go to hell. I actually called my dad the next day and said, "Hey, this is what my life was like last night." And he's like, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I'm fine." And then I just kind of lived my life. I just was a person who was alive. I wouldn't say I had any real problematic drinking that I was aware of until probably my kids were born, and I was 30 at that point. And then I started to be kind of like, maybe this isn't good. And I just didn't have language around problem drinking. I didn't even know what it was. Like, I didn't have any real, like, I knew I wasn't an alcoholic, whatever that was, because I didn't turn into Mr. Hyde and I didn't have DUIs and I was able to go to parties and not make an ass out of myself for the most part, I suppose. But yeah, then I don't know, it just got progressively worse. As we know, this disease of alcoholism anyway is a progressive disease and it's pretty patient. Like, it'll wait you out. It doesn't really quite, some people have this story that like, I knew the minute I had my first drink that I was a goner. For me, it was a much more progressive experience. And then in COVID, after 10 years of trying to quit drinking, and I did dry January a bunch of times, and I trained for triathlons, and I went 6 months at one point, and I kept convincing myself like I can stop anytime, but it's always just worse and worse. And then COVID happened, and I just fell off the rails. I don't know, I just lost my mind.
What was it
Literally,
about the COVID that took you off the rails? Was it like the
I,
isolation
I
and
think so. I think like I was bored all the time, and I was at home all the time, and I could drink anytime I wanted to. I was drinking with clients during the day, like not with them, but I was on Zoom and I just had like a bourbon and Coke while I was at 11 o'clock in the morning. And I don't know. And when I say I lost my mind, I literally, like I lost my mind. My short-term memory started to evaporate and I was angry all the time. And I don't know, it just was terrible. And then by the time the fall rolled around, I knew I had to do something. And so I did. I asked this one guy that I knew for help, and he tried to talk me out of it like 3 times. He was like, "If you want my help, it's going to be hard." And I was like, "I want your help." He's like, "I don't know if you do." And I was like, I do. And he said, I try anything else. And I've tried everything. So then he just kind of became my de facto sponsor, and I got on the wagon My last drink was November the 13th of 2020. And what I always tell people, and this is why I start with this idea that I had a drinking problem before I ever touched alcohol, is that quitting drinking actually ended up being the easiest part for me. Like by Thanksgiving, I was done. I had no desire for alcohol. I didn't have any need to drink. I had enough. I had shaken out the cobwebs, but then I started to get sober because my real drug of choice was anger and resentment, and it took me a long time to work through that. So I do have this like story around alcohol, and I'm curious about it. And I learn a lot from it, but most of my recovery is from anger and resentment. So that's where I spend a lot of my time relationally, and where I spend a lot. And maybe I'll drink again. Like I'm never going to be that guy who says I'm never going to drink again, but I just don't have any. I just don't have any interest. Every time I even get
Yeah.
kind of close, I'm like, I don't know, no, that seems boring. But man, I have to work all day, every day on my anger. It is a totally different thing. In traffic, it's a good
It's so
example.
interesting. Yeah, traffic, that's a good
Coming in this
barometer.
morning trying
There's
not to get furious about all these people who are just doing the same thing as me, waking up trying to go to work, and I'm like, what's your problem? Why are you making my life so hard?
Yeah, traffic is definitely a barometer of my spiritual condition, my spiritual fitness.
Yeah,
Two questions for you. I'm so
yeah.
curious about what was it about that man that you asked for help that made it accessible to you? Was he like not a therapist? Was he already
No,
sober?
he'd been in my life for a long time. He and my wife and I had actually been over to their house a bunch of times to talk about life and parenting. And he was older, maybe 30 years older than me, so he's in his 70s. It was a sober guy, been sober for a real long time, and I'd always just enjoyed meeting with him and talking to him about his experience. We would go out to talk, and I'd have a beer, and he would have a not a beer, and we would talk about. And I was clueless. Even then, I was just sort of like, "This is weird." But no, he just was a consistent presence in my life who was steady and stable. And one day, I just called him up and said, I think I'm in real trouble this time. Like, I think I'm in real trouble." And he dropped whatever he was doing and started talking to me. And I met with him and another guy, his like partner in crime, I guess, for like 2 years, every week, 2 years, just showing up on Tuesday morning and talking about, read through the big book like you do, and kind of just talked about what was going on. And yeah, so I kind of did a little bit. I did the AA thing for like 2 years. I worked the steps. I went to meetings. All my meetings were virtual because it was during COVID. At least I started in COVID. So
Yeah.
my home group was this group out of South Africa that I went to pretty consistently. I've only been to 3 in-person meetings in my entire life. So I think there's obviously a lot of different kinds of ways that you can do this. But once I finished the step work and finished meeting with them, I haven't stayed active in AA. It's not been my space of like support and accountability. And again, I don't really feel like right now I need support and accountability around alcohol, but I'm still in therapy with my therapist who I love, and she and I are in constant conversation about my recovery. But just I'm not like, I don't know. I don't know if you have this, but I have this weird confidence that I know when my next drink is going to be. Like I know exactly where I'm going to be. I know exactly what I'm going to have. I know exactly what mood I'll be in. And for what it's worth, I'm going to be alone. I'm going to be angry. I'll probably be traveling, and I'll be at a bar by myself. No one will know who I am. And I'll probably order like shots of whiskey. I think that's the context in which I'm likely to relapse. But what that means for me is I can go to a wedding, I can go to a barbecue, I can go to my own fridge, I can go to I can go out to drink with friends. Like somehow I've codified that for myself. Like I literally don't think about it except sometimes when I'm walking to an airport and I'm like, no, I'm not angry enough. I'm like, you know.
Yeah. It's
So
interesting because in 12-step literature, they do say that resentment is the number one offender of relapse.
sure. Yeah, I believe it 100%.
What is the nature of your anger and resentment? Typically, people have common themes. So, is it like anger and resentment towards self? Is it unresolved anger and resentment? Like, what is the root cause? Have you gotten to that part yet?
That's a really interesting question. I think I have to take it back probably to my dad. Like I had
Yeah.
this fear that if I didn't live within the expectations that he established, that I wasn't going to be a man or something. I think it probably the thing about this story is it's hard for me to wrap my head around it because I've actually had a lot of healing around my dad. Like I maybe this is the way into this answer. When I was doing the step work, I thought that you made amends to the people that you like threw up on or whose car you crashed or the person who's like, you embarrassed them or you broke their lamp at a party or something. Like I thought you made amends to all the people that you offended. And at least with Dave, my sponsor, Dave and Jim, they made me make this list of all the people that I had resentment for. Like it was like a list from top to bottom of everybody that I was angry with. It's a pretty long list. And then,
As a
then they had
fourth
me,
set. Yeah.
yeah, then they had me rank it. And my dad was at the top, and at the bottom was an aluminum Christmas tree stand, like it was literally an inanimate object, which has made me the angriest I've ever been in my whole life. And it was interesting because I started writing a letter to this Christmas tree stand and making amends for beating the shit out of it, which is what I did. I mean, I destroyed this thing just because it didn't do what I wanted it to do. And so I wrote a letter to the Christmas tree stand. I wrote a letter to my middle school bully who objectively terrified me for years. And so I'm writing this letter, and it's the best editing I've ever had in my life because they stripped out anything at all that sounded like displacing responsibility or pushing it away.
Mm.
I did this because you pushed me
Yeah.
around, or and by the time I wrote those two letters, which took me months, by the time I was done with those two letters, I was done with my dad. I no longer was caring because I brought responsibility into myself. I brought it into so the nature of my resentment is somehow believing that the world owes me something and that when it doesn't deliver, I have a right to be offended and upset. And with my bully, objectively, I was terrified by this guy. I mean, he harmed me, and yet I still was able to kind of go, but I never stood up for myself. So I gave you permission to make me feel small and afraid, and I need to take that on to myself. And having done that, like the process of doing that over and over and over again in the last 5 years has been the thing that has actually given me the most freedom from resentment. So I actually look for it when I'm upset with somebody and I'm like angry and I find myself like being like super pissed off at my wife or my kid or the traffic or whatever. I just start to go, I wonder what part of this I'm in charge of. I wonder what part of this I can take
Mm.
responsibility for. And then it's kind of fun. It's actually fun because I don't do it with shame and I don't do it with like self-deprecation. I just sort of go, yeah, if I had left earlier, I wouldn't be in this situation. And
Mm.
that's on me because I just putzed around this morning,
Yeah.
you know.
What role does forgiveness play in this process? Forgiveness of self or others?
My favorite definition of forgiveness is giving up hope for a different past.
Yeah.
And I think about that a lot because I get these questions sometimes like, if you could go back and tell your high school self one thing, what would it be? And then maybe I start to fantasize about marrying a different person or getting a different job or investing in Apple or something. And I find that's a really flawed experiment because I look at my life right now and I go, no, this is my life. This is my life and I like my life and there's things that are challenging by my life. But I spend time talking to thousands of people and their lives are, I mean, they married a different person, they invested in Apple and they got a different job and they're still suffering. So I just sort of, for me, it's just kind of letting go of this idea that I deserve or could have had something else. And when I do that, I just have a lot more grace for myself and I have a lot more grace for other people. So
Yeah.
I just sort of go, okay, well, but what do I do with this? Because
Yeah.
it doesn't do me any good to get upset about it. And again, what I want to emphasize is like, this is fun for me. Like I, I play this game of trying to negotiate out of anger that I don't want inside of me. So I
Yeah.
spend a lot of time with couples and these guys or these women, but let me just say guys, these guys are so upset because their wife doesn't, and their wife doesn't, and their wife is this, and their wife is that. And I'm like, okay, well, then why don't you just make it about you? If you make it about you, then you don't have to worry about her and you can not be angry and you don't have to not be angry for her. You can not be angry for you. And they're like, well, how am I supposed to do that? I go, that's the fun part. Like literally you could start to be like, what if I wasn't angry right now? What would I do instead? I might
Yeah.
surprise myself. I might do something interesting or creative or, and I'm like, sure, that's fun. you know,
Yeah.
I'm learning how to dance. I've got excited about jigsaw puzzles. I read books made of paper. like
Weirdo.
I know. Like I'm like, what if I didn't sit around all day blaming the world for my problems? Like that'd be interesting, you know?
No, what I'm really hearing is that you're changing how you relate to your feelings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. And again, I was talking to a friend the other day, and she was telling me about how she treats the part of other people that she doesn't like. So she'll meet somebody and she'll be like, blah, 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 blah. And then there's this part that I don't like, and I fucking hate that part. And I just want them to go away. And I wish they would do something about it. Blah, blah. And she said, that's actually how I treat the parts of myself that I don't like. And it kind of
Yeah.
blew my mind. I was like, yeah, I guess that makes a lot of sense, because the way I treat the parts of myself that I don't like, and it's the way I treat the parts of other people that I don't like now in my new brain, in my new,
Yeah.
is I go, huh, you're here too. Okay. Since you're here, could you pass the potato chips, please? Like,
Yeah,
I'm like,
totally related. Yeah,
you're
to
just part of this, just part of the vibe right now. And so I could either get super pissed and try to get you to go away and you can get all my attention, or I could be like, okay, I'm sure you got something to offer. Just hang out over there for a little while until I figure out what that is.
I love this discussion of parts because so once I discovered internal family systems,
Mhm.
they talk about we have these parts of ourselves that we often exile, dissociate from,
Yeah.
and having a different perspective of how we relate to them, meaning they have an intention that's actually good. They're trying to protect us in
Yeah.
some way, right?
Yeah. Usually.
And yeah, and having appreciation for these parts often allows them to relax, and then we can operate from our higher selves. And I love this. I got this idea from a sponsor. She used to ask me, "Can you love your unlovable parts?" The
Mm.
parts that I hated about myself, which would typically show up in somebody else, right? People are mirrors, they reflect back to us what we love or hate about ourselves. And can we treat them with the same level of compassion that we would treat ourselves once we understand that those parts have a good intention? It was like a
Yeah.
different way of relating to my parts because I typically wanted to avoid or suppress or deny or cut out or get rid of. So it was like
Hmm.
a total paradigm shift for me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something about learning to love them, which doesn't mean learning to like allow them free reign.
Mm,
It's like, man, okay, you did something. And in a lot of ways, like for me in these conversations, a lot of what those parts are doing is they're protecting you from, like, my dad. Like, my resentment, my anger made me really vigilant against this narcissistic threat that was in my house.
mm,
And so, the part of me that took the deal and didn't drink till I was 21 was very stubborn, very angry,
mm.
very, fuck you, I'll show you who's the boss kind of stuff. And it protected me.
Yeah,
Because I was a scrawny little, wiry little kid who was afraid all the time. And so what could I
yeah,
control? I could control like the terms of the deal. you know,
yeah,
I could at least control that. So
yeah. That's really powerful. Let's shift gears a little bit.
sure.
What I hear from a lot of people is, they get sober and they feel better. They want to reconnect or deepen relationships with their spouse or their children, but the kids are just not there yet. And
Hmm.
from research and the information that was presented to me, you have a daughter. Can you tell me
Hmm.
the story about your daughter and maybe her reaction after you and your wife got sober?
Yeah. Well, I have two. They're both adults now. They're 23 and 19. So, the younger one on my sobriety date, I guess she was 14. The other one was 20 at that point, maybe. I don't quite remember. I mean, it's literally a blur, a little bit of that stuff. What I found is Dave, my sponsor, made it clear to me. He said, a family system is like a mobile that's moving over top of a crib. And when you take, and all the parts are moving in ways that like make sense. Like they've fallen into their predictable rhythm because the mobile is, inertia has created its movement. Then you grab a piece, me, and you stop it. And you stop this one piece of the mobile from moving. And then the other pieces kind of freak out. They don't quite know what to do. They're used to the other piece moving. So they go haywire. Um, I would say that definitely happened for my wife, who had been a rock for the longest time. We were drinking buddies, and I wouldn't have ever said that she had problematic drinking. That's not entirely true. But like once I got sober, she sort of spun out. She just kind of got worse. I mean, she's like took her turn basically.
Mm,
And then she got sober The older one had gone off to school by this point. She was plenty wounded and still is, carries around a lot of resentment. But the other one, the younger one, lived at home with us at this time. And so I get sober, mom spins out, mom gets sober, the kid spins out. So this was it was sort of the natural next step in our, I think, family's evolution. And it was really painful. It was really painful to watch her do that. It was really painful for me to be getting healthier while she was not. In this particular case, she's the kid who's most like me, so I sort of got her. I understood her. We were quite bonded, and then she just started to kind of say, "Nope, I don't want this bond anymore."
Mm.
And in my own recovery, and then also in Rebecca's, we just let her. We let her spin out. We put a roof over her head. We put food on the table. We put expectations on her for school, but she basically ran the show. She ran her own show for about a year and got in trouble, didn't do well in school, had some really toxic friendships, that we just sat back and watched and kind of tried to scaffold as much as possible, because it's almost like we were like, it's her turn. It's like, it's her turn. And it's
Were you
dangerous
just
to
trying
do
to
that with it.
were you just trying to keep her safe during this time
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much just make
and
sure
letting
that
her make
she,
her decisions?
yeah, we had a lot of help. We got into therapy, the two of us, and it was a really challenging time. To Mary's credit, she's a kid who needs to kind of work it out on her own, a little bit like me again. And so when she did, she started to take her own, I wouldn't call it sobriety, but her own recovery into account and advocate for herself and make her choices. And she's delightful. We sat down last night. We watched Good Will Hunting together. She's like, "Dad, you want to watch Good Will Hunting?" And I was like, "Okay," but this one's gonna poke you in the ribs. And but she's really thoughtful about her own process. And I wish there was a moment I could point to and say, "Oh, this is when she figured it out or came back." But the reality is, it just was, I think, kind of the slow and steady wins the race mentality. And I think time time takes time. When people are trying to heal, we can't hurry them along. And so both of them still have their trigger points. Both of them still have their anger. Both of them still don't trust certain things. I don't think either one of them is concerned about us drinking, but when I get angry or when mom starts to overfunction, that's a traumatic relapse experience for them.
Mm.
And so we have to be aware of that and be stewarding that. And I don't know if I quite answered your question, but
Yeah, absolutely. I
that's
was
kind of how it went
curious
for
though.
us.
Yeah, I was curious, in those moments, especially early on, where, she was upset and acting out, how did you get grounded or stay regulated or recover from those really intense was it like, did you
I mean,
guys
no,
fight or
Mary and I,
like, how specifically did you take care of yourself in those really intense moments?
I love that question. I'm trying to think about. I know globally at that point I was still in meetings. I still was meeting with Dave and Jim. I still had my regular therapy appointment. We added a therapist that was a parenting specialist that Rebecca and I met with. So I had a lot of my own scaffolding. I had a lot of my own support. I had good friends, a really sacred friend who loves my kids dearly and is able to advocate for them and for me and our family. Like, he was really, really even-handed about helping me kind of navigate some stuff. So I had people to talk to. I had people to navigate. I also had, by that point, a real awareness that this is probably my fault.
Mm.
Like, I I did this, created this scenario. Did Rebecca help? Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Did Mary have her own contributions? For sure. Abby too, 100%. But I just was like, what do I need to do here? And how can I make this worse? I knew how to make it worse. I knew how to make it worse. And I was like, how can I make this worse? Okay, don't do that. Do literally anything else.
What would make it worse?
I mean, I could get in a fight with her. I could take her car keys. I could ground her. I could play high and mighty. I could play why aren't you more like me kind of game. Like, look at how much work I'm doing. Why don't you appreciate what I'm bringing to the table now that I've got all this sobriety, 2 years or 3 years under my belt? Like, I could have made it worse in any number of ways. And even in the moment, I was aware that I knew how to make it worse. And I think, again, for me, the reason or the way that I know that I'm in trouble is when my anger is running the show.
Mhm.
So even if I'm driving in the car, like sometimes that's the first time I'll know that I'm depressed or angry or uh, like that I'm not well,
Dysregulated.
is that I'll start cursing at other cars and I'm like, wait a second, what is that? Because that's new or that's like not helpful. Like, what is going on there? So I have to like, and she, because I loved her so much, I love her so much, is capable of making me angrier than anybody on the planet. So I just had to choose whether or not I was going to take the bait every time, every single time. And I still do. I had an experience the other night. I don't mind sharing this because I had an experience the other night. One of my kids screamed at me, literally went off for like, I mean, she was really upset and she took it out on me. And I was at the dinner table and I just sat there and she was standing in the kitchen and just yelling. And I had a couple of experiences. One is I was like, I recognize that. That's me. She learned that from
Mm.
me. And I just sat there and I was like, yeah. And she was screaming. I go, you sound really, really upset. She's like, fuck off. And she turned around and slammed the door. But I was able to stay. Like, I didn't take the bait. I didn't go into like, who do you think you are? And this isn't my problem. And da da da. I just let her have it. And then a couple days later, she apologized and that's fine. She needs to take her own time. But I was really just like, kind of like, I did it. I look at that. I didn't, uh, I didn't screw up. I didn't take the bait. I didn't just let the first part of me, the angry part of me, win. That's pretty cool. I like that. I like this guy.
Yeah, that's pretty cool to be able to
Well, it's
not
fun.
get defensive and stay grounded and have sort of I mean, it almost sounded like an out of body experience where you're just, like,
Yeah,
observing the
yeah.
scene without attaching to it.
I'll tell you about another out of body experience I had. This isn't strictly part of my, but it was last summer, and I think the greatest movie of all time is Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I'm not even kidding. I can defend it to the end of the earth. But I had this Who Framed Roger Rabbit movie, which was I had a little cartoon bird land on my shoulder. I was in some kind of argument with Rebecca, and I heard myself saying, "Rebecca's driving me crazy. She's driving me crazy. Oh my God, she's driving me crazy." And this
Rebecca's your
little
wife, to be clear?
yeah, Rebecca's my
Okay.
wife. So this bird lands on my shoulder, and the bird says, "No, part of her is driving part of you crazy." And I literally heard it with my ears, and then it flew away. But then as soon as I accepted that, I realized I have options now. Uh, First option was I could focus on the part of her that was driving me crazy, or I could focus on a different part.
Oh.
And the second one was I could focus from the part of me that was being driven crazy, or I could focus from a different part. And so when I had that experience, and literally people don't believe me when I say this, but like I feel like I could actually still feel the bird on my shoulder, but I I had options. And when you have options, you have power. And I feel like, okay, I think for me, it's really all about just recognizing that I have options. And, options means agency and agency means power. And if I have power, then I can actually influence people, including my kids. So the power that I had the other day was to do nothing.
Yeah.
And when I did nothing, it was the best thing for my kid who, yeah, same kid. The other day I walked in, she was crying about something. And I thought about all my options. I could just like ask her if she's okay and keep doing my thing. I could try and get her to stop crying. I could turn on the TV or distract her, but I just pulled out the chair and sat down at the table. Just sat there, just sat there and waited for her to say whatever she wanted to say, which ended up being something about the state of the world and how overwhelmed she is. And, you
Mm.
know, I just kind of said, yeah, it's it's a lot of
Validated her
stuff.
feelings.
It's a lot of stuff. You guys, people your age are thinking about a lot of things they don't need to be thinking about right now, and that's really hard. And
Yeah.
so she was like, and also this guy just died on Game of Thrones, and I was like, yeah, babe, that's hard too. It kind of ended in this pleasant little experience, but yeah, I don't know if there's any value in any of those two stories, but
No, absolutely. I
that's
think
where I'm
it's
at right now with those guys.
and listen, I'm impressed that and probably because of the work that you do, you didn't rush into fix. like a lot of people want to rush in
Oh
to
my God.
fix.
No, thank you. I
So
have no
just
interest in
giving her
fixing.
space and just it sometimes all we need is someone to sit in the mud with us for a minute and
Yeah.
validate our experience and just be like, yeah, I could see how you feel like that.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that absolutely sucks without trying to make trying to make her feel different.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we do that enough by ourselves as a self-avoidance,
Yeah.
avoidance of feelings. So to be able to sit with her is really powerful.
Yeah. Well, again, people say, I mean, when people ask me, nobody ever asked me this question. How'd you do that? But my answer is the same, which is I practiced. Literally, I practiced. I
Mhm.
practice. I
Yeah.
practice. I rehearse moments. I script things out. I make sure that they are aligned with the impact I hope to have. Of course, I can't control it when it comes out of my mouth, but like I can like script things. I practice. I have the benefit of sitting in this. I'm in my counseling office right now. I sit in this chair 30 hours a week and help people practice. So I got a little bit of extra practice time that a lot of people don't have. But but no, I practice. People are like, I don't know if I can do that. I go, of course you can. Like every single thing you know how to do because you practice. That includes walking and speaking
Yeah.
English. Like that you practiced and you were bad at it and then you got good at it. So I just decided this is a thing that I needed to get good at because if I didn't, in my version of rock bottom, I was staring the end of my marriage, the end of my relationship with my kids, and I was staring the end of my career in the face and into my life in the face. I was like, no, I can't. I don't want that. So I'm gonna learn how to do this other thing.
Yeah, I mean, you have to, like, consider all the options like we do
Yeah.
and, choose something different. I'm really getting such an intense clarity around how when we change how we relate to our feelings
Mm.
and take moments of self-reflection and, like you said, practice and not expecting too much of ourselves, this idea of, when you do something new, you're gonna be bad at it. Just, like, showing up is the win. Like,
Yeah.
taking your turn at bat is the win. It doesn't matter if it's
Yeah.
terrible. I always joke around about I told my husband I'm gonna start doing bar class. And I'd
Sure.
go to bar class, and I was horrible at it, I couldn't do it, and I'd come home, and he would be like, "How is it?" And I was like, "It was terrible, but I went."
Yeah. Yeah.
After about 6 months, he's like, "When's it gonna get better?" And I was like, "I don't know, maybe I am better, but I'm not even focused on that anymore, I'm just focused on showing up."
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And over
I like
time, we
that.
got better, so I feel like if we can sort of take the specific lesson of just starting a habit or starting to practice, it's gonna be bad, and then pretty soon over time, it'll get better, then take it, the lesson here and apply it there.
Yeah,
All
this is a
good.
hard thing to like the idea of time though is like I'm so glad I'm 52 because I actually know that time is a real thing. 20 years ago, I have memories from 20 years ago and I was an adult. I wasn't in high school 20 years ago. I was like 20 years
Yeah,
ago, I was a grown up and my kids, they don't have any concept of time. They don't, everything is right now. Everything is right now. And
yeah,
I'm like, no, it's not right now. Like there's time. Like you can figure this out. Like it's just going to take some time. And I used to get mad at my kids for not being as far along as me.
yeah.
And every once in a while, I'll still go, well, why don't you do this thing? I do this thing. And I go, oh, yeah, it took me like 40 years to learn.
So guilty of that, oh my god.
You know,
I'm always sending self-help stuff to my kids, they can't stand it.
I know. I'm just like,
I had to stop.
and you can't just say, trust me. Please just trust me. Just do this. I promise you. If you learn, this is an easy one. I joked about Apple earlier, but it's like if you learn investing right now, like if you just decide that your money is worth like stewarding instead of just like surviving on, I promise you,
Mm,
you will be like I promise you, you will appreciate not starting at 40 or 50, which
yeah.
is advice I got when I was 20. And I was like,
Yeah.
no, can't do it. Are you kidding me? No, the market's too scary and I'm not gonna, and there's no way. And I gotta make sure that I still can figure out how to play my video games and da da da. So I don't
I mean,
expect,
listen, most kids are just barely trying to pay their
no,
bills,
a hundred
right?
percent, 100%. I know.
It's
I'm
like,
just
"I don't
saying.
have $100 to invest." That's
I'm just,
crazy.
I'm just like, but I always say, I have never once learned anything in my life, never once learned anything in my life before I was ready to learn it. And so I try to get my kids to be ready to learn something and they're just not. And I go, oh, I guess they're just not ready to learn that. Certainly
Yeah,
not for
and I have
me. So
found it actually creates resistance, right?
yeah. Oh,
Like,
totally.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
had to my husband's like, "Just stop it, you're making it worse."
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, "Okay,
Yeah.
stop all that."
Yeah.
Well,
No,
listen
my new question with them is something like, "Do you wanna know what I think about that?
yeah.
Because I got I got a lot of ideas, but maybe you don't wanna know what they are, and I'd rather not talk if you're not gonna listen, so
Yeah.
maybe I just skip that step?"
Yeah, I started getting to this place with my kids a while ago where I'll be like, "Did you want feedback?" Because 'Cause they'll come in and they'll be like, "Wah,"
Mhm.
and so used to treat that as an invitation to help them
Mhm.
problem solve,
Yeah.
which
Yeah, yeah.
it is not. So I've learned to
Yeah.
ask, "Did you just want to vent or do you want some feedback? How can I
Yeah.
support you?"
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But the one in our house is, "Do you wanna be helped, heard, or hugged?"
Hurt?
Heard.
Oh, hurt. I was like, "How is hurt an option?"
Yeah. Or I could punch you in the face. Would that help? No, do you wanna be helped, heard, or hugged?
Hurt or
Because
hug.
because, you start trying to help somebody who just wants a hug, you're getting it wrong.
That's so
S
funny. I tell my husband in our relationship, it used to be like, he'd want to fix, or he would
Yeah.
just listen and not give me any feedback. And I would feel like I was talking to a plant.
Yeah.
I decided to ask for what I needed.
Yeah.
I'd be like, hey, I need to unload
Yeah.
and you don't have to do anything but listen.
Yep.
And at the end of this, I need a poor baby and a hug.
Yeah.
And he'd like brace himself. He'd be like, okay, go.
And he's like, "I
I would
got you.
just unload and then I'd pause and give him the poor baby. And
Now
he'd
it's
go,
your turn.
oh, poor baby.
Your turn. And cute line."
And go.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's helpful to know what it is and I've asked my kids because listen, I'm like you, I listen to people all day.
Yeah.
And so sometimes at the end of the day, he comes home from work now and he'll want to unload and I'm like, "Time out. Can you ask me if I have the bandwidth to listen today?" And he'd be like, "Oh, do you have the" and I'd be like, "No, buddy, sorry. I
Yeah.
could help your dad."
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've also recognized my own limitations.
Yeah, yeah.
So good. Listen, we could chat all day long. I'm wondering, so you have marriage therapy radio, so I'm gonna leave links to that in this
Yep.
show. But if people are interested in connecting with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, Marriage Therapy Radio comes out every Tuesday. That's a space where I'm just talking to couples about how they make it work. My name is Zach Brittle. The internet is makes it easy enough to find anybody these days. My practice is available. I started a blog, or restarted a blog. It's called stuffIwrite.com. It's on Substack. And I am just gonna try and practice writing still there. So if you wanna know what I think about, I think my last article was about the Grateful Dead, about stuff that I write about, then you go to stuffIwrite.com.
Yeah, I think it'd
So
be interesting to hear your process. You don't think like
yeah,
I think most people do. I think being in the, mental health space, you think about things differently and
I hope so. Yeah, I'm
yeah.
trying to use that space to write about things that aren't strictly relationship related because I spend all my time there. But yeah, if I get caught up in an idea that I want to just think out loud about or write out loud about, then I usually put it there. So
Yeah. Well, listen, I think there's such a need for people that are married to have other resources and listen to
yeah,
different conversations about how other people make it work. I'm scheduled with my husband to
cool.
come on. We've been married well, we've been together 31 years. We met right when I first got sober. He had already been
Yeah,
sober.
got it.
So, we definitely have a process. So I'm
Yeah,
so excited to share that.
yeah, yeah. I look forward to talking to you about it. And yeah, we're all just kind of making it work, I guess, trying to figure out how to do the next thing. So that's what it's about.
Love it. Love it. Well, Zach, thank you so much for your time today, and I'll look forward to our conversation.
Very cool. Thank you.